Greetings friends! Today I want to share the complete build guide for my Flask Aurabot magic finder that can reach over 800% increased item rarity. So let's get right into it. This is a level 95 Pathfinder build designed to be played in a group. It is important to know that this build is not for solo gameplay as it does 0 damage by itself. It is also quite expensive in comparison to the budget version, costing around 120 divine orbs. The build can be improved with corruptions and best in slot gear, however to do that we will definitely need to either get lucky or invest hundreds of extra divines. For our defenses, we sit at 76% fire and lightning resist and 81% cold resist from our sapphires in the passive tree. We are chaos immune from chaos inoculation, and we have 4700 energy shield with 1100 mana. This mana is primarily used for mind over matter keystone and is just an extra boost in our effective HP. When we use our flask, we will have 2400 energy shield regeneration per second by using the Eternal Youth keystone. And we also share 33% of our flasks with our party by using Alchemist Boon gem. We have a 10% chance to evade and 1200 evasion. We have 33% estimated physical damage reduction with 1800 armor, 25% chance to block from our shield, and we have 125 flask life modifier and 60% duration. We also gain a flask charge every 3 seconds. Our primary skills are the life and mana flask. We have to press every 4 seconds the life flask and every 10 seconds the mana flask. My recommendation is to bind these to an easy to use button like right click and mouse side buttons. Unfortunately, we cannot use left click as a bind because we won't be able to pick up loot this way. So left click will have to be an active skill like crossbolt or profane ritual. For the gem setup, this build does not require any level 20 uncut skill gems or spirit gems. Spirit gems are nice to have but expensive, so I left all my auras at level 19. Our first skill is crossbolt and is linked with wild shards, scattershot, deceleration, and arcane tempo. The purpose of this spell is to slow enemies and cover terrain with chill ground. With this spell, I pick up loot, so it is bound to my left click. Profane ritual is linked with profusion, fast forward, and mobility. We use this spell for corpse clear in maps and power charges to our allies using the conduit keystone. If you dislike frostbolt, you could use only this spell instead and bind it to the left click. For our spirit gems, we have Alchemist Boon that is linked with Herbalism and Vitality. This aura is how we provide regeneration to our group. It works with all life builds or energy shield builds that take Eternal Youth. This keystone right here. It is weaker with builds that are full mana using mind over matter keystone because our life flask is not applied. But we still apply our mana flask, although not as efficiently. We also have our Malice aura, granted by our scepter, and we sorted it with persistence. Next we use Blink with Ingenuity. This is a must-have spell for mobility, and Ingenuity helps out with the long cooldown. The rest of our spirit spells have no links, but they help out a ton in the survivability and buffs to our party. Ghost Dance allows us to recover energy shield when hit equal to 5% of our evasion. We have 1200 evasion, so that will be 60 energy shield recovered. Grim Fist is a no-brainer for this build because it allows us to break through the 4.7k energy shield cap, and we already take credit for everything that dies in our presence to apply the rarity. With this spell, we can overflow energy shield to double our survivability. The only way we die is against a big one-shot KO, so this spell is the perfect addition to the build, making us nearly immortal. We use Defiance Banner for a small defensive buff against unique enemies and mob bosses, and Charge Infusion for party play to convert charges into powerful buff, but this aura is the one you can drop if you duo and nobody else is providing enduring and frenzy charges, or your scepter does not have increased spirit modifier. For utility spells, we have Lightning Warp to call enemies in case our teammate dies, but also to surreptitiously blink around. We do have an offhand setup using Quill Rain and a attack speed quiver, and we soak it in Culling Strike in our bow shot. However, both of these things I use maybe once every week, so please feel free to ignore them as they are not an integral part of this build, just nice to have, something to fill up gaps. You can definitely drop Lightning Warp for another skill that you think it is useful. Now for our most important part when it comes to a Magic Find character, our gear. I'll start off with our scepter. This can be an Omen Scepter for Malice aura or a Stoic Scepter for Discipline aura. Depending on your group, one can be better than the other, especially if your carry doesn't use any critical. Depending on the item level, the scepter can have higher level aura. For stats, we are looking for 100% increased damage, maximum mana, increased spirit, and ideally presence area of effect, so we can cull enemies further away. If you want, you can corrupt it for extra stats like more damage to your allies, which I did, but unfortunately this one doesn't have presence area of effect. Scepter like this with area of effect will cost us around 30 divine orbs. But this one I've crafted for 20 exalts and crafted myself. Our shield is a machination with 650 effect of soul cores and corrupted for an extra socket. This shield alone grants us 220 rarity of items found. By using this, we also have the raise shield skill that allows us to protect ourselves from incoming damage. I recommend using spacebar for it and spam it as much as possible, but be careful to watch the bar above your flasks. When you negate the damage, it will fill up and you will get stunned and stuck in a 1-second animation when full. Helmet is our biggest energy shield piece, so we have to make sure it has a high ES number along with a lot of rarity and resist. This one has a perfect rarity and a big lightning resist. I've tried corrupting similar helmets like this for an additional socket for extra 10% rarity, but failed a lot and lost a lot of money in the process. A helmet like this is a minimum of 10 divine orbs. Our gloves are a mandatory unique called Gravebind Rope Cuffs, allowing us to take credit of any kills that happen in our presence. It is corrupted for an extra socket and has 20% rarity soul cores. The boots are a armor and energy shield base, but it could be a pure ES base if you find a good pair. This one came corrupted for an extra socket and it has a 30% roll on rarity along with 30% movement speed and a resist. Our body armor, nicely rolled Warrior Invictus, corrupted for an extra socket and 50% increased rarity of items found, resulting in 100% rarity body armor. It is important that we get elemental resist per socket runes also, because it is very hard to cap or resist with this build. Next we have our Ingenuity unique belt with a perfect 80% roll to increase the effectiveness of our rings. However, the downside of Andavarius is also amplified, giving us a lot of minus all elemental resists, and that is why our ring is a rare base with all elemental resist to counteract this downside. Speaking of, our rings consist of a perfectly defined Andavarius called ring. Ideally, you'd like to corrupt it and get even higher numbers, but I double corrupted it and failed, but left it as it is because a double corrupted, higher rarity than perfect Andavarius, it is quite expensive. And we also use a gold ring. This one can be improved, but it is mandatory to have a resist and all elemental resistances and around 60% increased item rarity. Ideally, we would like to have maximum mana here as well. If we catalyst our ring for cold resist, the modifier will increase elemental resist too. Our amulet is a gold amulet anointed with reinforced barrier that has around 80% rarity of items found, a resist, and some maximum mana. We require our equipped rares to have at least 30% roar of resist in order to balance and cap our resists. So be careful to not stack the same resists on your gear. Our flasks consist of a potent ultimate life flask of the Alchemist, corrupted for extra quality to give as much regen to ourselves and our group, ideally with a minimum of 70% increased amount recovered, and a 20% quality melting milestone. That is a unique mana flask. This flask not only allows us to share our mana with our group, because the effect does not queue, but also acts as a protective layer because it will be able to recover all our mana during effect. Remember, our mana pool is just an extra 1000 HP and our spells consume very low mana. So the only way we lose mana it is when we take a big chunk of damage. Now for the passive tree. We are a ranger pathfinder that is using enduring elixirs, so flask effects are not removed when unreserved life is filled. This way you can use flasks every 4 seconds for a very comfortable mapping experience. We also need a lot of passive points. That's why we take Traveler's Wisdom. Most of our skills are used to travel to keystones, jewels, and flask nodes. And we also take Running Assault for less movement speed penalty when using skills. This is a nice quality of life improvement that helps us keep up in maps. One of the most important mechanics for this build is Eternal Youth and Chaos Inoculation, allowing us to fully regen our ES instantly. So we have no need for recharge energy shield or faster start of recharge stats. We take Oasis for 30% more recovery from flasks, but this can be dropped if you wish to add an extra 20% rarity from your charm. We take Conduit to share any charges that we get with our allies instead. And last keystone that we take is Mind Over Matter. Since we do not need mana recovery, this is just an extra 1000 effective HP pool that we can utilize. Our points are spent primarily on maximum energy shield, stun threshold based on energy shield instead of life, spectral ward giving us more energy shield per evasion rating from the body armor, icebreaker to gain 100% of maximum ES as additional freeze threshold, and all the flask effect and life flask effect that we can grab on the tree in order to make our flasks more potent. For jewels, we do not use the adorned unique jewel because a good one could cost us at least 80 diviners, but instead make use of rare jewels rolled with maximum energy shield and other useful stats, but most importantly corrupted for implicit resists. The increased effectiveness of auras is a stat we want to make our buff stronger, but it is not mandatory. Most of them have maximum cold resist and maximum energy shield along with implicit resist. If you would like to use the adorned unique jewel, you will have to make use of magic jewels instead of rare ones. Those two will need to be corrupted for implicit resist and have a big chunk of maximum energy shield. For the permanent buffs from campaign, I took +5 to all stats and mana recovery from flasks. I will be providing a link for the passive tree, jewels and gear in the description of this video, along with trade site live surges for gear and jewels. This has been everything about my Flask Aurabot 800% magic finder. If you have any questions or suggestions, please post them down below in the comment section or come ask them in chat when I stream. I would love to have you there. Thank you very much for your time, and as always, hope to see you soon. Exile